Now I want to talk a little bit about how to select data from multiple tables at the same time using joins. To start with, I'm going to run this player refresh script, this MMO refresh script, and it will drop any character, class, or player tables you have, recreate them, and add data so that we're in the same place, and that way if you're following along you can be sure that you haven't made any mistakes because you'll have the same output as I do. Don't highlight anything, click anywhere on a blank spot, click execute. That's how I want you to do refresh scripts. Now we're going to write a new query or two. So I'm going to hit tables here. So let's start with something real simple. Let's start by show all characters with the players they belong to. Okay, so to do that, we're going to select a character name and a player. Let's put their first name concatenated with their last name. And we need to get that from somewhere. Now we have a character and we have a player, so we need to get information from both the character and player tables. So let's go from this time from player first. Right. To add in the character table, we never do a comma character. SQL uses that for other reasons. If we did that, we would get every player and character combination that is possible without worrying about whether or not they're actually related. So don't do that. What you want to do is say join, or to be specific, left join the character table on the player's player ID being equal to the character's player ID. Now be careful. We want a parent table's primary key to a child table's foreign key. How do we know? Well, number one, if we go back to our documentation, we can see that we have a diagram showing the fork going from left to right, and the left-hand side of this fork, in this case the single line side, is the parent side, and the multi-line side is the child table. Same thing applies to class. It doesn't go left to right, but it still goes out from class and then expands into character, meaning the class is the parent table, the character is the child table. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the player, the parent table's primary key, and I'm checking whether or not it's equal to the character table's player ID. And that's the full-on expression that allows us to select records that are related from both the player and the character table. In this case, we're using what's called a left join. Okay. What that means is that we're including all players and only characters where we have a match with those players. So if we had a player that didn't have a character, they would show up at least once. For now, you can see that players are related to their correct characters. And if we were to go into the database and have a look at the player IDs in both tables, we could visually match up that this is the correct result. That's not particularly interesting in and of itself, so let's find out how many characters does each player have. Okay, so let's go select, and we'll get player email. Okay, we'll just leave that one there, and we'll get a count of the number of records that belong to that email. And that means we grab it from the player table, obviously. So if I say group by player email, okay, what we get here now is for each player record, we get a number of player records. So we'll get a 1 for each player email. So far no meaning. What we want to do is get number of number of characters. Okay. To get that number of characters, we need to join in the character table, because every time a player has a character, there's a record in that character table. So we're going to join or left join the character table on, and then describe that relationship again. Player ID is equal to characters player ID. Now if we run this, you'll see our counts change so that it actually shows how many of each, how many characters each of our accounts in our database currently have. We may want to also output multiple pieces of information about our category. Say we want to output the player's first name and concatenate on their last name. Okay. That's all off the screen, so I'm going to put it on multiple lines now. Oh, and I forgot a plus sign in here. That's important. So I have 3 columns now, but I'm creating one column by deriving information or calculating information from our tables. If I try to run this, I'll get an error that says player first name is invalid because it's not contained in an aggregate or group by clause. And you can see another error very similar is coming up for player last name. I've grouped by player email. I've not grouped by player first name or player last name. If I want to include all that information about my players, I need to make sure to include those pieces of information in my group by clause as well. And now we're okay to output that information. We may also want to sort this. Perhaps we want to sort it by first name or last name or whatever. So let's just go by first name because that's the way that we've written our names for now. But let's go with player first name. And there we have it. So we know the number of characters that Callum Lynch has is 2, and Frank Castle has 3, and James Marks has 1. Now left join and right join don't mean much yet, but there is a right join, and we will discuss in class what exactly that means. But I'm just going to show you that the syntax is not too different. In fact, I could, let's use this first query here. And I'm going to ask the exact same question, show all characters with the players they belong to. All right. And now instead of a left join, I'm going to put in a right join. And unfortunately, with our current data, we more or less have the same data as we would from a left join. So we're going to hang tight and learn about left joins versus right joins in the coming week or so. All right, see you in class.